I did. All right. Okay. So the next organ system here.
Is that blood? Is it blood?
No, this is the lymphatic system. Blood is. What do you need? All right. The next thing is the lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system is really amazing because, they are all amazing, but this one is really incredible. First of all, the major organs of it are the spleen. And one of the groups last year that was making a talk from the New England Journal of Medicine, they had this. They were reviewing a paper. They didn't end up presenting it, but it was this review of a paper where these two people were, one team, a crew team, and another guy in a sculling thing. He got rammed. The nose of the boat went through him and popped his spleen out of the front of him. Yeah, spleen. Anyways, it's over on this side, right below your left rib. What is it? The spleen. It's one of its primary functions is what's called erythropoiesis, or the generation of new red blood cells. Oh. All right. And then there's another organ called the thymus, not to be confused with the thyroid. The thymus is a super interesting organ as well that lives right on top of the heart. It lives right on top of the heart. And the job of the thymus is it really only is functional for like 2 weeks of your life, from the moment of birth for like about 2 weeks. And then by this time in your lives, your thymus is pretty small and it's probably not just. But the job of the thymus is to initiate what's called thymic. It takes all the white blood cells in your body that recognize the self. So you make white blood cells that will recognize pretty much anything. And the ones that recognize the self, like you make white blood cells that will recognize a kidney cell and kill that kidney cell. You don't want those cells to kill your kidney cells, right? So the thymus, the job is to like delete out all the white blood cells from the baby that are self-reactive. When you have an autoimmune disorder, it's when, like an autoimmune reaction, those cells, for some reason, get reconstituted, those white blood cells that react to the self. But initially, it's the job of the thymus to kill those cells off in newborn babies. Yeah, it's this little blob on top of the heart. And then the rest of it are these in here green tubes, the lymphatic vessels, the lymph nodes, and then these specialized lymph structures in the throat and pharynx called.
Okay, so if the spleen is part of the system,
lymphatic system, yeah.
Why is?
Because it's not. It's not. It also is responsible for maintaining the white blood cell population, the proper white blood cell population, and it interacts with the bloodstream, not the lymphatic stream. So when you see all these tubes here, what the tubes are is like a second circulatory system in the body. It's kind of a second circulatory system that runs parallel to your regular circulatory. And the reason, but there's no pump driving it. It shows you the heart here only so that you can see where the thymus is. The heart is not actually driving the lymph. The lymph is this clear fluid. Like, have you ever had a blister? And the fluid that's in a blister, lymph is sort of like that. But it has lots of white blood cells in it. And it also has fat globules. So the lymphatic system is how white blood cells that have destroyed pathogens like bacteria, it's how they take it out of the tissue and bring it right to the abdomen to the gut and like dispose of it in the waste in your colon, and that comes to what's called the thoracic duct that you see right here, this large one. It's also how the intestines, when you eat food, remember what were the biomolecules? This is a good review for Quest. What were the 4 categories of biomolecules? What were the 4 categories of biomolecules? You can think of it a different way. What are the 4, well, really 3 types of, yeah. Yes?
Lipids,
Yes.
something.
Fatty
Nucleic acids and carbohydrates, sugars. Yeah, proteins, fats, sugars of life. Yeah, those are the 4 categories of biomolecules, right? Well, when you eat proteins or sugars and then nucleic acids, which are very small amounts, those go right into the bloodstream from the gut. But fats are not able to because they're not water soluble, so they go through a complicated process that maybe we'll get to. I don't know if we will or not, but they get absorbed through the lymphatic system and then travel into the bloodstream through the lymphatic system. So what you notice here is along the tubes, there's no pump, but we have all these lymph nodes. What does a lymph node do? Does anybody guess? By looking at where they are in the body, can you guess what they do? Where are they located?
Where are
We'll get closer and look if you need to.
Are they in the blue?
I don't see any blue. The blue are these tubes coming off the heart. There are these little balls that you see, the lymph nodes. Yeah. Has anyone ever felt their lymph nodes when they're sick in their neck, or if you have an infection somewhere, you feel.
I thought they were just.
They're all over. You have them behind your knees. You have them in your groin. You have them down in your abdomen. You can't feel those so well. You have them here on the inside of your elbows, on your armpits, in your neck, all along your jaw, on the back of your neck. What? Yeah. Okay, they are places where you sweat, but that's not actually. What else are those places doing? They're joints. They're joints. And so the way we move lymph around the body is when you move your body, you're squeezing on these little bulbs that are sort of like pushing the lymph along. This is why when people are
every joint.
Huh?
Have them in every.
No, but all the major joints though, like in your armpits, there's a ton in your armpit, there's a bunch in your neck, there's a bunch in your groin, behind your knees and your elbows, at the big moving place. Which is why people who get bed-bound, who are sick, they have a hard time clearing infection because they're not moving things through their lymphatic system. It's like moving around a little bit, doing some dancing is a good thing for your lymphatic system and helping to flush stuff out of your body. All right? So that's the lymphatic system. I'm sadly not going to have a chance to really talk about this any more than I just did, which is why I went.
What do they mean by
Tissue fluids? Yeah, so your cells have fluid inside of them, and then there's fluid outside of them, extracellular fluid, but it's fluid that's not necessarily in your bloodstream. We'll talk about that in more detail, but the lymphatic system is one way that you can take fluid from your cells, from your tissues, and get it to exchange with the bloodstream. So we'll see that. I do have some slides in the cardiovascular chapter that talks about that a bit. All right, respiratory system. The respiratory system it's obviously how we breathe, but it does more than that too. So what's it made of? It's got the nasal cavities, these like chambers in our head. We've got the frontal the sphenoid sinus that's deep to the bridge of your nose. There's the maxillary sinuses. There's sinuses all the way back here, even behind your ears in the base of your skull. There's sinuses all over them. And then the larynx, your larynx is the part of you that if you were to look at the corner of the sort of angle of your throat, feel that big cartilage. It's your tracheal cartilage, your thyroid cartilage. If you were to grab that, that's your larynx under there. And your larynx, and when you talk, you can feel the vibrations of that. And then descending from that, if you feel along the center of your throat, that sort of ribbed, that like corrugated tube going down, that's your trachea, which goes down and then branches into the bronchi, which are the tubes that then go to your lungs. And then the lungs themselves, when we get there to the respiratory chapter, we'll see that the lung tissue is kind of a sponge. The little bubbles in the sponge are called alveoli. So the job of the lungs, it's obviously to exchange gases, right? That's one of the primary jobs. It's to exchange gases. So to release carbon dioxide that your cells, so you eat food, your body burns the food, that just like you would take a log and put it on a fire, fire burns the log, and the carbon, the wood fiber, gets oxidized by the oxygen released as carbon dioxide. Your cells burn the food that you eat, and that carbon in the food that you eat gets released as carbon dioxide through your breath. So you truly breathe out all the food that you consume, that your body burnt. And it brings in oxygen. And then phonation, or the ability to produce sound. Phonation. Yes.
But I
Okay.
feel, well, not really. I feel like it obviously. Like when you eat food. Okay, so what happens when you burn?
Yeah.
And it's just like a
Totally different.
so okay, so
Completely different.
no.
No, burping is just gas, air that is down in the stomach because you swallowed, or maybe you ate something that released gas, like a carbonated beverage.
Oh,
Yeah. It's just gas that's in your stomach. Okay, the digestive system. This is how we assimilate food, right? So teeth, tongue. Pharynx is the back of your throat. It's the combined area that eventually splits off between the trachea and then the esophagus, which is your swallowing tube, and trachea, which is your breathing tube. But before that, it's called the pharynx. Then it becomes the esophagus, into the stomach and the intestines. We have these three associated organs. The liver, which you see here, the gallbladder, which somebody, I don't know, maybe it was Ashley Head, said they had never heard of it. But yeah, it's the organ that's underneath the liver, which is where your body stores bile, which is the chemical that we use to fat. And then the pancreas, which is kind of hidden behind the stomach here. And that's the organ that makes the insulin and helps us produce juices that aid in digestion. All right. So processes and digests food, absorbs and conserves water, of course, absorbs nutrients, and then it stores energy reserves in terms of how the liver stores both sugar, mostly sugar in the form of what we call glycogen, but we'll talk about that. And then if you're pathologic, you can also store fat, have like fatty, the base of metabolic problem. Later. Okay, the digestive. And the last of them, that I'm going to talk about at all is the urinary system. The organs are the kidneys, where we produce urine, the ureters, which are the tubes that go down to the bladder, which is where we store the urine, and then the urethra, which is how we eliminate the urine from the body. The urinary system, the job is to basically filter the blood. It eliminates waste products from the blood, control the water balance in the body. If you have too much water, it can eliminate that. And then as a consequence of that, it affects your blood pressure. Your kidneys relate to your blood pressure. It obviously stores urine, and related to its ability to excrete waste, it's really what it's doing. The kidneys are adjusting the quality of your blood, right? So it's taking waste out, and if it's too acidic, it's making it more basic, or vice versa. Too much salt in your blood, it's removing salt. It's adjusting the ion concentration. Lastly are the male and female reproductive systems, which I'm not even really going to go over. I wish I had time, but no way that'll even this year. But so those two. Okay,